Okay, hey, welcome to another episode of On the Wrist Off the Cuff. Today I have a really cool trio of watches for you from the brand Redwood. A little bit about them. They were founded back in 2014. They are a small, independent, family-owned brand founded by two brothers, which assembles their watches in small batches out of their workshop in Montreal, Canada. They really are known for producing everyday, adventure-ready timepieces that are both heritage-inspired and built for today. In terms of the type of watch, these are chronographs. Some key common characteristics in language you're looking for a chronograph. You're of course going to see external pushers to activate timing functions, multiple subdials to measure elapsed time, often featuring additional scales dependent on the subgenre. These also fall within that space of course, that MecaQuartz boom that's going on right now within micro brands, with some popular brands charging upwards of $500 for these MecaQuartz powered models. Now, the cool thing here is these are actually quite affordable, but still really high spec. This is the entire Recon line, at least at the time of recording this. Redwood was able to send these samples in. They are just here on loan. They'll be all getting sent back. And you can see only one of them is running. The other ones actually have the crowns pulled out because I want to, keep some of that battery for whoever's gonna purchase these pieces and kind of get it going. But I did want to have one that was running during the filming here, so you guys could kind of get some action and see how it works. But there's not a running seconds hand on here, so it's really just gonna be the chrono hand adding some life to the dial. But these are really cool and I like them. So with all that said, let's go ahead, zoom the camera out, get these pieces in hand, and take a closer look. Okay, guys, so three variations here, but let's go ahead and pop up this guy. It's kind of the most, I would say, subdued version of it. Very, very traditional. You can stop, snap it back. Very, very nice. So that running chrono hand really shows you the MecaQuartz portion of it, because it's actually, the mecha comes from the mechanical gear train that is actually running the chronograph. Everything else is going to be run by a quartz in terms of the timing, so that's great in terms of timekeeping, but it's really nice to have an actual pusher versus a button that is going to activate that. So this is all going to give you a more mechanical and tactile engagement when you are engaging with that chronograph. Now, this is again the Recon C46, and this is the Commando, which is the black dial model, and you can see it's on this nice leather NATO. In terms of the dimensions, 40 millimeters in diameter, which is great, especially for a chronograph. You do want it to be, slightly larger so you can let that dial breathe, but nice and compact enough to where it's not overpowering your wrist, even if you have a smaller wrist. This is only 11.5 millimeters thick, which, for a quartz chronograph can seem a bit thick, but I think it is kind of within that tool watch proportion. This is not meant to be some slim, sleek dress watch. This is meant to be a rugged tool watch. It has a 47.7 millimeter lug to lug in terms of the length, and you can see it does have drilled lugs. It has a flat sapphire crystal with an inner AR coating. Again, that really nice specs from that perspective. Signed crown. It's a push-pull crown, of course, because this isn't a diver or anything like that. And then you get into the movement, although you can't see it. Let's go ahead and show the case back here. And this is going to be, across the board are going to have a similar look here. You can see really nice etching there. But inside, for those of you that don't know too much about Seiko MecaQuartz, and maybe you're just first time tuning into the channel. So what's really interesting about this is actually the MecaQuartz VK64 model, and it basically, again, quartz timing, but mechanical chrono action. So with that, it has 1/5 second interval in terms of the sweep. So that means, let me give it a quick little wipe here on the dial. Sorry about that, say on the crystal. So 1/5 of a second, which means basically those ticks in between each second is going to be going 5 ticks per second, which is going to be a lot smoother than about that singular kind of tick that you would normally get from a normal quartz watch, a quartz timepiece in general. And then of course you get that instant 0 because it's mechanically going back versus it's sweeping back, which a lot of other quartz powered chronographs would do. Now, the chrono mechanism in here actually consists of over 20 individual parts, very similar again to that traditional mechanical chronograph gear train. So that's where it's going to also pick up some thickness, but also it's going to give you, again, that it's not mushy, it's definitely more crisp, more tactile, and you're not pushing a button, you're pushing an actual mechanical pusher. So very cool from that perspective. In terms of some of the details on the case that you guys may have noticed, you can see the inner horns on the lugs do have a high polish, and then you can see really nice satin brushing all around, as well as having a bit of a polished bevel here on that fixed bezel there. So very clean, not too much to it, a bit of a slab side, which does probably make it appear a bit thicker than normal, but again, I think that does relate to the general the aesthetic here being a tool watch. It does have 10 atmospheres or 100 meters of water resistance, which is good to 330 feet. So that's very nice. And then in terms of the dial layout, these are all going to share pretty similar, but this model here, which is going to be the Dakota, which is the white dial, actually has a fully loomed dial. So they actually did do some differences in terms of the look and the font. I think it's actually very, very good looking. And we'll definitely showcase this when we get to the low light transition. But essentially with a loomed dial, you don't necessarily have to have loomed hands, because the hands will just contrast, over the loomed, background. So also, you're going to see here more of a traditional date window at 6 o'clock. These are both going to have the date window at 6, but they're going to have kind of that open preview style. So the centered date is going to be the date, but then you kind of get a look at what tomorrow and yesterday were. So very clean. And then something that not everybody loves about these is you're going to have actually a 24-hour scale or an AM PM indicator. A lot of folks don't really care for that when it comes to a chronograph, but again, in terms of a pilot's watch, it's actually quite useful to have the AM PM indicator. So I don't mind it at all. I didn't mind it in other variations of this. Again, it's not completely frivolous, although, again, it's up to you to use it in the way that it's set up to be used. But these are really nice, very, very clean, very handsome. You can see a couple different options in terms of the straps, which is cool. Nice leather, 20 millimeter lug width there, so very, very versatile. And then they're going to be using Super Luminova Swiss Super Luminova C1, which is nice, and very, very clean. And then you can see the kind of more ribbed NATO style here, but even with the black hardware to match that very cool black PVD case. So this is essentially just going to be the steel model with a black case, and very, very clean and very stealthy, very tactical. And then here you're going to get a bit of a variation in design with that nice fully loomed dial. It's going to have more pencil style hands. This feels a little bit more like a field watch versus a pilot's watch. And I think that's fun. Of course, it still is within this line, and it still is a pilot's watch at heart. But I would say you can probably switch this for duties and whatnot, and it would feel equally at home on the ground, just because it just has a bit more, at least to me, a bit more of a field watch aesthetic there, with just those more slender hands and less emphasis on loom. But it's going to be pretty much the same in every other way. So with that said, let's actually get this one on the wrist and see how it wears. Okay, as you can see on my 7.5-inch wrist, this actually fits really well, and surprisingly enough, the NATO strap is long enough, or I should say the NATO style strap is long enough to fold back over and be quite tidy on the wrist. So I really dig that. Of course, if I get my wrist too close to the camera, you're going to get a bit of distortion in terms of the perspective. But what I'll do is I'll keep my wrist nice and low. We'll engage that chrono action again, and we'll just tighten up the shot here so you guys can get a more detailed look, but still keeping that short aspect ratio and seeing just how nicely centered this is and how it sits on the wrist. Of course, this strap color probably isn't the best for me because it's a little bit too close to flesh tone there. But I think this is just quite a handsome piece there, and you can see extremely legible. Sits very flat on the wrist. I know, again, visually that side slab case might be a turnoff for some, but I will say that, again, it's not actually that thick. It's just not doing itself any favors, because at 11.5 millimeters, that's actually not super thick by any means. That's probably about what a tool watch should be. It's just, typically you might be a little spoiled and, see some tricks with undercutting and whatnot to really shrink down that mid case. Here, they're really accentuating that. And I think it's more so to really showcase the tough tool aesthetic. And yeah, at the end of the day, it does have a sapphire crystal, full stainless steel, 100 meters of water resistance. So it's built to be quite tough and robust, and it definitely conveys that, of course, with the design language on that case. But with that said, we can go ahead, get this set up for some Lume shots, low light transition, and closing thoughts. Okay, guys, so since essentially the black case model and the steel case model are essentially the same, we'll go ahead and just have these two so you can get a bit of a closer look and really see the difference here. All right, as you can see, really nice lume. Of course, that fully lume dial is really, really going to stand out. But you can see there that the dial on the standard model also looks really, really great. We'll even give it a little extra punch here, a little black light to just kind of highlight. There you go, at full kind of blast. And one thing I really like to do, of course, within this space is work in a bit of low light transition, because you're not always going to be out in the middle of a field enjoying direct sunlight. A lot of times you're going to find yourself coming in and out of buildings, walking underneath overhangs, or maybe just hanging out underneath the shade of a tree. So it's nice to see what these colors, textures, and finishes render like in less than optimal lighting. And you can see transitionally, you're going to get a lot of contrast still, very, very legible. And that's something that's very important for a pilot's style watch. Very, very cool. And again, it's kind of it could go either way. Some of you might not be happy with the lack of a running seconds hand, but also at the same time, you're not getting ticking, right? Which is also going to save battery in terms of the battery life. So it can go either way, and some of you might be happy that this is a MecaQuartz and you want something that is going to appear more mechanical, so it's nice not to have that ticking going on. And then even if you did want to run the chrono seconds hand there, you can see it has a very nice sweep to it. Not quite, your typical 3 hertz. It's going to be sweeping a little bit slower than that, because that would be 6 ticks per second. This is only going to be 5 ticks, but still very, very nice. And again, very legible. And for the price, guys, did I mention the price yet on these? $259 direct. Yeah, $259. That is wildly good considering everything that you're getting. So closing thoughts, guys, on the wrist, it wears really well. Again, a really nice sweet spot at 40 millimeters, but still having a very balanced dial. And then, of course, that addictive chrono action. In terms of model variations, you've seen them all, guys. It's pretty much these two, and then there's also a black cased version of the Commando model. It's known as the Commando Stealth, which is the black on black style. In terms of comparable models, most micro brands are really focused on the vintage motorsports themed pieces within this space. So the military, these being military pilot inspired models, you do get to enjoy a bit of a less crowded market space, which is nice. So for me, guys, bottom line, for well under $300, you get a lot of bang per buck, all wrapped up in a very clean and super versatile package. For those of you that collect a lot of different straps, especially within kind of the military theme, these will easily go on. They have drilled lugs to make swapping things out easy, and you can see that they are made to go with pass-through straps, so you're not going to have any issues, especially if considering that these are, right out of the gates, they already have enough clearance for you to put a thicker leather NATO style strap. So that's the cool thing. Nothing to worry about. Very, very useful. Very, very useful and and usable, but also being very versatile, right? In terms of what you could wear these with, different styles, dress them up, dress them down. I think there's a lot that's there. And yeah, these aren't just, kind of a random watch that somebody put together. They were really inspired by those legendary chronographs issued to Air Force pilots from World War II and onwards. And then really it reinterpreted them with updated technology, and really just wanted to make them robust enough to where the Recon is ready for anything you can throw at it. And I think they did a great job. So kudos to Redwood. I'll definitely be keeping an eye out for their brand in the future and seeing, what types of other releases they have. I know they have been popping on my my Facebook feed recently. So excited to see more from them. Thanks to them. Again, big shout out to them for lending these pieces in to the channel so I could share them with you guys. So let me know what you guys think in the comments below. If you like the video, please do a like. And if you haven't already, please subscribe for more content just like this. Thanks, guys.